Okay, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at my prototype for randomizing events using Fungus within Unity. Now, for those familiar, the way Fungus works is you have a variety of flowcharts that you can include within a scene. You can see here I have quite a few. I have my primary one, which is this main flowchart that you can see here that has various nodes within it, and then within these nodes you can have a variety of commands that are running. I'm going to be looking at this particular event randomizer command here in a little bit more detail. But the way this works too is I also have a separate flowchart. Right now it's called the stress test flowchart, and this has a ton of nodes in it right now. I think there's about 500 nodes in here, and these are basically just random events. They're just placeholder events, but I wanted to get a feel for how many events I could plug in before I started seeing any kind of slowdown. And I really didn't see any slowdown in Fungus for this, which is great to see. But the way these work is an event can be just a simple, one node that has a variety of things, maybe some dialogue that happens and some variables that get updated, or it could be really complex where maybe there's 5, 10, 15 different nodes and a variety of decisions that you're making within an event. So I wanted the flexibility to have a large number of events that I could pull from and to have complete control over how simple or complex those events could be. So I needed the ability to be able to call from one flowchart a random node within here to pick up into there. So just kind of giving you that high level overview of what I was trying to accomplish here. And basically I'm doing that with this series of commands that are all happening in this event randomizer block. So I have some say commands in here, and if you're not familiar with what a say command is in Fungus, it's kind of like a console line that's sort of, I'm just narrating what I'm doing here just for demonstration purposes. So they're not actually useful commands that I would actually use in runtime to randomize an event, but it does kind of help explain what we're doing. So the first thing that happens is we have this series of blocks right here, which is a while loop. And basically the while loop is basically saying that while this integer turn maximum is more than this integer, these commands between the while and the end are going to happen. So in that case, that's these 4 commands. And you can see here I have all my variables that are in here, and I can sort of pick and choose what I want that integer turn maximum to be. So in this case right now I have it just set to 5, but if I want to be able to pull, let's say 10 events over the course of the game or 20 events, I can pick what I want that number to be. So the first command that it's going to do in there is pick a string from a list. So you can see here I can pick my size. In this case I've just kept it simple with 10, and I've got my strings in there for the 10 possible random events that I want to be able to pull from here. And I'm basically storing the return variable into a string called random event, and then right now I have it set to randomize my selection and then remove whichever one I select from the list. And then after I remove it, it moves to the second command, which is serializing that. And I'm serializing that random event string that I just had and serializing it into another string called serialized. I then increase that integer turn by +1, and then the loop will continue, assuming that integer turn maximum is at that point still more than the integer number of turns. So it'll run through that loop, in this case 5 times, and each time it will be serializing that. And then once that loop is completed, I will then deserialize those strings. You can see here I'll do that 5 times since that's the number that I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to take the index of those strings, in this case 0, since they'll have multiple ones saved in that one string, and I'll output them into strings 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is probably sounding really complex, but once I play it, I think you'll get a feel for what I'm doing in here. And pretty much wrapping up that event is I just set whatever event that I want to have happen as a Boolean to be true, and I'm doing that just to track to make sure that it pushes me back to whichever node I want to whenever I'm done. And then I have a command in here called execute block string, and I pick any flowchart in the scene that I want to pull from. In this case, that stress test. And then the target block that I want to have, instead of being a value, I have it set to just pull in, well, let's do that string number 1 for that first event. And then the stop command here will just end any further commands that are happening in here until at some point someone calls this label to resume this event, and then we'll pick back up. So that probably sounds overly complex, but it's actually really simple, and it's all happening within just this one little command here. So let's go ahead and hit play. And again, I have those narration commands sort of explaining what it's about to do. So it runs the while loop, and right now it's paused because I have it set where it's not going to keep moving forward until I click it to continue. So it picked from this string here, and you can see now the size is 9, and I have events 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So clearly event test 4, like it displays here, has been done. And it's now serialized that string, and it's going to add to that int string here. So when I click, you can see it runs it again. It does the next one. It pulled event test 1. Click it again. Event test 8, event test 5, and event test 6. So now that loop has been completed. And when I come down here and look over here in that string serialized, I can see all of the various strings that I've serialized in there. Now let's have it go ahead and deserialize all of those strings. So I'll click that. It immediately deserializes all of those out, and I have it displaying what events it's now going to have saved in the system. So in this case, those 5 random events that I want to have happen will be event test 4, 1, 8, 5, and 6. So again, I wouldn't actually use these say buttons right here to explain what I'm doing, but I could just have these commands run silently at the startup of the game, where basically from second number 1, I already know all of the random events that are going to occur in this game from this huge sort of database of random events. And those events could be, small, simple events. They could be huge, complex events, but we're basically determining all that right out of the gate. So let's go ahead now and jump from this flowchart that I'm in right here. And we're going to go into that stress test flowchart by using, we'll set that variable for event 1 to be true, and then we'll execute a block in another one. So you can see now the fonts and everything have changed, and I do that just to make sure you can see we've changed flowcharts. And let me actually go over to that stress test flowchart, and I'll zoom in because you can see now it's playing event test 4. And when I select that, this is just a simple example, but it's issuing the commands in here. And then at the end of the command, regardless of how big or complex it may be, I'll just have an if statement where it's just checking, which event is true to make sure that it passes me back to the proper node whenever that event has been completed. So in this case, it's just doing this one command before it goes back. And then when I click to continue, it does the if statement and has already called and sent me back over into that original flowchart. So here we are, it's resumed. It set that event that I had set as true is now false, and we're back, and we've completed that first event. So I hope this was an interesting example of how you can use Fungus to do random events within the system. Again, I'm probably not explaining this really well, but I really just wanted to try prototyping something first before I started building out all of these random events to make sure that I could actually do all this within Fungus and make sure that it's a real clean, simple process that I can run right out of the gates when the game is starting, where I already know all of the various possible events that I'm going to be running pretty much from the start of the game. So hopefully you found this video interesting. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know with a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.